The French. We are back after a long hiatus.
Wait, are we recording now? This is the show?
We're back. Yeah, dude.
Or are we testing? What are we doing?
No, we're back.
Well, welcome back, Morgan.
Welcome back to That's Infotainment with Morgan and John.
I'm John.
I'm still Morgan. That's good that we didn't change.
No, we didn't change our names.
We didn't change our names.
In the, 2 months?
It's been
6 weeks.
Feels like that. Yeah, our last episode was all about Last Picture Show.
Yeah.
And it was maybe going to be the last episode.
Right. People were wondering, and I got a few disappointed people.
Yeah.
But mostly no one really cared. No, I don't.
There are, you know what? We've got a vocal and small fan base.
Yeah, yeah.
And
the
that's
people
how I like it.
Yeah, the people that like it really like it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's so ridiculous to name the person like on every show.
Yeah.
But my friend Austin,
my friend Bill Scurry and William Remmers, they're big fans.
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Thanks for
we
listening
can actually just kind of address each fan.
Yeah, we have. That's how small yet vocal our fan base is. We know them all.
Yeah.
I think there's more that we don't know.
There definitely are, because I can see on the stats that we have fans from places that I've never even been.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's some people listening to it in Japan.
Right. Yeah. And I think your grandma's a big fan. Is that right?
Yep.
Or some older lady
my grandma.
that's involved in your life?
I think my grandma listens to it. I think she may watch some of the movies we talk about afterwards.
Oh,
which
that's
is
awesome.
my favorite thing to hear.
That's great. Yeah. That's why we do it.
What's been going on in your life?
Oh, just still working over at the Archive of American Television, which is now changing their name.
Okay.
To the Interviews and Oral History Project of the Television Academy, or something like that.
So catchy.
Right. It rolls
I like
off
it
the
though.
tongue,
I like it though.
Yeah, it's great. And what's been very cool in the last month or so is the Garry Shandling documentary premiered on HBO.
Let me hype you up real quick. So John Dalton, my co-host on this podcast, That's Infotainment with Morgan and John, did a wonderful, Judd Apatow called it a genius interview. Brilliant
and fantastic
interview with Garry Shandling for the permanent record.
Is that for right? The Archive of American Television, now the Interviews and Oral History Project of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, or something like that.
Well, and what? It's like over 3 hours.
It's a 2-hour interview.
Okay. And you went to Gary's house for it.
We went to Gary's house for it. Did I not tell this story?
Maybe you have, but we can do the
okay. Yeah. So, well, let me give some background. I started doing freelance work for the Archive of American Television in 2004, and I would do the research on these people from television history, and then write questions that were like a career-spanning kind of oral history of this person's life. And I did Miss Rue McClanahan, and
Great.
I did Joan Rivers, and I did Don Ohlmeyer. And that was a really interesting one because I hated Don Ohlmeyer. And
I don't know who that is.
He was the president of NBC West Coast.
Oh, okay.
And he was like O.J. Simpson's best friend.
Oh, is he the guy who got Norm fired?
That's right.
Or he wanted to get Norm fired?
That's right.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons that I hated him.
Yeah.
And so he was the first one where I actually got to go to the interview. I didn't conduct it, but
Quick tangent, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just very, very quickly. Blind item this week. Norm Macdonald's show for Netflix, which is shooting on the lot that I'm on right now. Apparently, Norm has been trying to get OJ to do the talk show.
Wow.
Which is great. It's a total blind item, so who knows if it's true. I pray to God that it is.
I think it's true.
I'm sure
I think I've heard this. Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, go back to you.
Well, that all ties into what I'm saying. So, I disliked him, first of all, I mean, because of the whole Leno Letterman thing. He was on Leno's side, pushing for Leno, because Leno was always the...
dude's on the wrong side of history.
NBC kiss ass. And he's OJ's best friend, and he lobbied to get Norm Macdonald fired from Saturday Night Live. So I wasn't a fan. So I did the research on his life, and I wrote the questions, and I did it very even-handedly. And I got invited to his house in Malibu, which was beautiful. Like, his backyard was the Pacific Ocean, which was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down, and that was like a 4-hour interview, and I wound up really respecting him.
Sure.
He's a really smart.
Yeah. You don't get that far being an idiot.
Right. That's right. And he he battled substances, and he was he was much more human than I would have expected.
Yeah.
And
like forthcoming about that stuff.
Totally forthcoming. Yeah. And I'm not going to go into all the things, but
you can go watch it, right?
You can go watch it. It's on the Television Academy website. And I won't go into all the things, but the one OJ thing that he said, and maybe it won't even sound that good when I say it right now, but in the context of the interview, because he had also been at the 1972 Olympics during those terrorist attacks where the Israeli athletes were murdered, and he started breaking down and crying, and it was really emotional. But when he gets to OJ, he says, well, just the way I was raised, you don't abandon your best friend at the worst hour of their life. And I was like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but I respect it.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway, so a couple years later, 2011.
Hey, what if your best friend murdered a woman, though?
Well,
not to pull a Norm, but...
Right, I mean, I don't know.
Because he murdered 2 people. Maybe that's why. No, I get where he's coming from, I guess.
I mean, do you think Norm would confront OJ, or would he kind of?
Yeah, I do. I think that's my hope,
right.
And I think that's what would be great about it. Is like I do think that if anybody was going to do it, it would be Norm.
Yeah,
and I feel like it would just start with. In an ideal world, it would start with OJ sitting down and Norm looking over at him and be like, thanks for doing the show. Hey, so did you murder those 2 people? You know, like, I really do think that that's how it'd go.
And OJ would be like, no. And he'd be like, because there's a lot of evidence.
Yeah, about the blood in your house, you know. I would imagine. Maybe not. But I can't. Why would you have him on otherwise?
Right, exactly.
And that's why OJ probably won't do it. He knows. But unless he's willing to talk about it now. Like, unless this is the new phase of it. He's out of prison. Maybe he's just going to start, you know. There's that guy in Japan who murdered and ate somebody, got convicted, and they let him out. I can't remember why. And he just does interviews all the time about, like, you know, Vice comes to him and is like, what does people taste like?
Wow.
And he'll talk to you about it.
I bet Norm could get him to confess. Yeah. Like, officially, because he already kind of has with that.
With the book and everything.
If I did it.
Yeah.
Which aired on Fox a few months ago.
Do you know how many people...
So exploitive.
I was telling John, I've been doing this movie map kind of. I don't want to get too in detail with it, but if you're a
it's
fan
really fucking cool.
If you're a fan of like movie locations and things like that, it makes it very, very easy for you to go to those places. So many people lived on Rockingham. Like Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, yeah.
Jimmy Garland. Like all these people. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. We were talking about Garry.
Going back to Garry Shandling, so for years and years, I was begging them to allow me to do the research and write the questions and conduct the interview for Garry Shandling. And they were hesitant. They didn't want to do it. And I tried to find out why. And I guess the Academy Board of Governors votes on who gets to be interviewed. Mm-hmm. And Garry had hosted the Emmys a couple times, and he wasn't the easiest person maybe to get along with, and maybe left a bad taste in some of the governors' mouths.
Based on his Emmys hosting. That's interesting.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, or behind-the-scenes stuff, contract negotiations, or whatever it is.
Right. But, I mean, it just seemed ridiculous to me that I even had to keep asking, like, because he created the Larry Sanders Show, and it's Garry Shandling Show. Like,
right. And also all the Carson stuff.
Right. Yeah. He's right in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. So finally, I get to conduct my first interview in 2010, and it was Chris Carter who created the X-Files, which was a terrible idea because I knew nothing about the X-Files. There are so many people who would have killed to do that interview. Yeah. And I'm sitting there just reading the questions, not knowing what anything means. It was so ridiculous.
2010, too, like, he had some people that wrote under him that would have been very interesting to talk about because he had Vince Gilligan on that staff.
Yeah,
Didn't he have David Chase? Didn't David Chase write some X-Files, or am I thinking of something else?
He did, like, Northern Exposure.
Oh, yeah. And did he do Hill Street Blues, too, with Mark Frost? Anyway,
Hill Street
I just found out.
Blues was David Milch.
I just found out the other day that Mark Frost did Hill Street Blues.
Oh yeah,
Which is great news.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll talk
Story
Twin Peaks
editor.
in a second.
And I'm lobbying to get him for the
Mark Frost.
Yeah,
Or Lynch.
Well, I actually think I don't know that David Lynch would necessarily even want to talk about Twin Peaks for 3 hours. You know.
Yeah,
we might
'cause it's
get more
about television,
information,
right? It's more television centric.
Right.
So
I mean,
Frost's the man.
Yeah, if I had to pick, I would say David Lynch, but I think we would get the more interesting interview about the show from Mark Frost, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he did a Reddit AMA the other day that was like very, very interesting to me, because he talks about stuff a little bit. Although,
Well, did you read the final dossier?
Yeah, and the other one too, the Secret History of
Yeah.
Town or whatever. Yeah, and like David said basically, well, that's Mark's.
Right, that's his thing.
That's Mark's thing. I can do it much better.
I disavow that.
Yeah.
Basically.
Golly gee, yeah, he wrote a book.
Well, who? It's his.
I'm finding it now. Can I keep going?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. What you are witnessing is a front 3/4 view of two adults sharing a tender moment. See, if I say that, I can stay in it, boy. Mark Frost is a scribe. Beautiful writer, scribe. Surrounded by morons. All right, sorry. It's hard not to do.
I think his right-hand woman, his producer, Sabrina Sutherland, said that he didn't even read either of those books, which is a little weird.
Well, that's hilarious. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems like the way they worked together was over Skype.
Mhm.
And Mark's in Ojai, and David's here, and they would Skype and they would write and they would divide up stuff, and then David would take it and go kind of rewrite it and shoot it.
Well, they did a great job.
Oh, it worked out beautifully.
Yeah, it's pretty brilliant.
It's pretty perfect. Yeah. Back to Garry Shandling.
I will get to this Garry
Yeah,
Shandling.
yeah.
So finally, in 2011, the call comes. We booked Garry Shandling, and we want you to do it. I'm so excited, and really didn't even have to do that much research, just because I was such a fan. And
Yeah, you just knew anyway. Yeah.
And so we get to Gary's house on the appointed day. It was June of 2011. I think it was June 12th. And we're waiting at the end of his driveway, and he's not showing up. He's just not there. An hour goes by, and it's me, the head of the Archive of American Television, Karen Herman, and two crew guys. We had the sound guy and the cameraman. An hour and a half goes by. He's not there.
Do you think while that's happening, he's for example, if I were to be an hour and a half late to something, the whole hour and a half that I was late, I would be just my stomach would be in my chest. I'd be freaking out, I'd just be like, fuck, I'm late.
Well, I can get to that when he finally does show up. But, I'm getting nervous. I mean, if we had just gone right into it, I think I would have been fine. But the more I'm standing there at the end of his driveway, and we're not even allowed to go onto the property.
Sure, like Ricky Gervais did.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
God. Yeah. Didn't want to make that mistake.
Yeah.
So the crew guys start talking to me about him, and they've worked on things. I think maybe they actually worked on his DVD extras.
Okay.
And they said to me, listen, he can be prickly, and if he insults you or, seems unhappy, don't take it personally and just go on with your work. It's not your fault. That's just how he is. And I'm like, fuck. And I had seen, obviously,
Horrifying.
the Ricky Gervais interview, which was a train wreck.
Right.
And it's taking place in the same space, in the same house. Yeah. So he finally gets there 2 hours late, just drives up in his Porsche with the window open. And as he's driving up, he's like, sorry, guys, sorry. I mean, he didn't seem too concerned about being late. He's like, I was at the gym.
But he knew. Do you think he forgot and then saw you in the driveway and was like, yeah, sorry?
I don't think so. I think he was it seems like he was in contact with people on the phone. Yeah, boxing and whatever he did. I mean, it's fine. Yeah. So we walk in, and I look around, and I'm like, this is where the Ricky Gervais thing happened.
Yeah.
There's the kitchen. There's fuck.
What did it smell like in there?
I don't remember.
You don't remember what it smelled
I don't
like
think
at
it was
Garry Shandling's
distinctive.
house?
It wasn't distinctive.
I would imagine it'd smell good.
It wasn't bad. It
It's
was
like Southwestern themed in there, right?
It is, but it was cluttered.
Because he's from Arizona.
He was doing some work on the house, and it was all cluttered.
Mm-hmm.
But, so I'm getting kind of nervous, especially with what the crew guy
Can't believe
said.
it didn't smell like anything.
Well, it may have, but I don't remember. It didn't make an impression on me.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
I should have kept a diary.
I want to get to a place where somebody walks into my house and they're like, "How was Morgan's house? Did it smell nice?" And it's like, "Oh my god, it was amazing." You know, I never wanted to leave.
All right, so what is a celebrity house that you smelled?
I don't go to celebrities' homes.
You've been in a celebrity's home.
Right,
certainly.
like sandalwood, I think, is like what you expect.
Yeah, I agree with that. That sounds right. Let's just say that. Yeah. Gary's house smelled like sandalwood. So we're sitting down, and like I'm fucking nervous as hell, and he can tell. You know, this ain't his first interview.
Right.
And he goes to me, just relax. It'll be okay. You have your questions. I'm like, all right. So
That's helpful.
The way we start, we start right at the beginning, and I say, we'd like to start with the very beginning here. What was your name at birth? And he goes, that's how you're going to start my interview? Like really angry. And I'm like freaking out in my head for a second. And then he starts laughing, and he goes, you know, the people at home don't know that I just told him
to relax.
And,
it's
and
a
that
funny
really,
joke.
that really broke the ice.
Yeah,
and
that's a
good.
great joke.
Yeah, he was great. And
just relax and chill out. And then, all right, you fucking idiot.
Right, it was
great.
It was essentially like that. And I could tell he was in the first 20 half hour or so standoffish and nervous. But I think once he saw that I respected his work so much and I had done the research.
I mean, it really is a good interview job.
Thank you you very much.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it.
Yeah. I mean, they clearly used it in the doc a lot.
Right. It's a huge part of the narration of the documentary. And I can just tell, I could tell that he was getting more and more into it and more comfortable, to the point where he cried when he talked about having Gilda Radner on. It's Garry Shandling show, which was her last television appearance.
I've been watching that again recently because I've seen Larry Sanders Show like 6 times,
sure.
and after the doc, I was like, I should take another look at It's Garry Shandling Show.
Does it hold up?
Oh my god, it's hilarious!
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
I mean, it is so funny.
Right.
And like it does not like tread on itself at all like a sitcom does. They never repeat anything. There's like like in the first season even, there's just like whole episodes where the like recurring cast isn't in it at all, and then one of the guys shows up during the credits and he's like Gary goes to him like, hey, sorry we didn't have any time for you this week, like we'll get to you later, you know. It's so funny. It's like even the recurring characters are like barely in there, you know. Yeah, pretty great.
I remember the one where he gives his mom a surprise party.
Yeah,
and
that one's
she has
awesome.
a heart attack.
Yeah. Well, that one's great. And then the other one that I think is so funny is like the person who wins the contest to be on the show, and then she's just like not pretty or something, so he just like doesn't give a shit about her because he's like attracted to his name or something, and then it's just like he keeps shuffling her off to the side of the stage. It's really, really funny. Really funny. Yeah, it's just some plain lady from like Florida or something.
Yeah.
He just is like, oh, okay.
God.
Great.
Well, my favorite joke of his from his stand-up was, I don't remember the exact setup, but it was, he was talking about being out with a girl, and it was all about her, and she got lit on fire, and she goes, I'm burning up, put
I'm
me
hot.
out.
Me. Yeah, I'm hot.
Pretty great.
Pretty funny.
So, it was like getting to like hang out in his head for 2 hours was great. And I don't know that he had done too many long form interviews at that point. I think later he did a lot on podcasts and things.
Yeah, I'd heard him a bunch of times on, he did Pete Holmes' show a couple times, and those are very good episodes.
Yeah,
I don't know if he did Marin, but I do remember, you know, obviously before he died, I was a huge Garry. I mean, he was my favorite comic, so like I would try to just like watch and listen to anything he'd ever done. And those bonus features are really great on the DVDs. They exist for Garry Shandling's show too, because I haven't seen any of those.
Not like that.
Not like that, but
No.
he did do.
He did do some. Yeah, he definitely did. But he didn't go around and like interview people uncomfortably like he does. With
but he did it above and beyond what a bonus feature should be.
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
I need to buy the DVDs because I had bought them all on Amazon, and so I've like watched them that way. But I don't have any of the bonus features for Garry Shandling's show, so I should watch those. But yeah, I do know he was doing interviews.
Yeah. And it was, and I just
and then the other one that's really worth watching is it's an episode of The Green Room with Paul Provenza or whatever, which was like on Showtime, and it's an episode with like Gary, Bo Burnham.
I remember that. Yeah, I saw that.
And I love Bo Burnham,
of course.
And I think it's like maybe Seinfeld or something. I mean, it's stellar. It's really good.
Is like a little competition thing with him and Bo Burnham in that, or no? Or was it someone else? I remember like a little tension with him and someone.
No, I think he just is really impressed with Bo.
Okay.
Like, I think that's kind of what it is that, you know, Bo gets up there and does his song and stuff, and everybody's just sort of like, oh, that's like kind of watching like a young master at work a little bit. And I think there's a little bit of like ball busting, but that's kind of what a show like that is. And
sure.
And what it means to be like a comic or whatever. I don't fucking know, you know, but that's why I really liked it.
Right. Well, you know, while we were switching tapes and things, we were chatting, and he mentions during the interview, I think, that he's a fan of Michael Cera.
Yeah, he loved Michael Cera.
But when the tape was off, he went on and on about Michael Cera, and it was almost a little weird. Like, I was like, why? Like, I like Michael Cera. I think he's great, but I don't know if I really
they talked
saw
about
what
it. They talked about it in the doc a little bit, right? That he had taken, like, he felt like the new step in his life was to kind of become a mentor.
Right.
And I think that's maybe how he felt towards some of these people. At least, you know, I don't know. I mean, I truly do think Michael Cera is a true talent. The shorts he made for Jash are on another level good.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That he did one with Jessica Bravo. That's very, very good. And then he also adapted a Bruce J. Friedman short called Brazzaville Teenager, which is great. And they're just like some very good performances.
Right.
Which I don't think I've seen from him in like film. Really?
Right,
or
yeah. I'll have to watch those.
But I can see, I guess, probably what Gary saw in him,
okay. And then the other thing he said that I remember, like while the camera wasn't on, was he was going on and on about how great Saturday Night Live was at that time, and that he thought it was by far the best cast in the history of the show.
What year was this?
It was 2011. It was like Will Forte years.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Maya Rudolph, maybe.
Yeah, right. I mean,
they were great.
They were great.
Yeah.
Oh man, rest in peace, Will Forte's show. I loved that show.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. Is it good?
Oh, it's
obviously
great. I mean, I think there's been this surge due to the fact that there's so many TV shows. Like, people like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine is very funny, but it definitely follows in the vein of kind of like 30 Rock or one of these shows that doesn't necessarily have an overarching plot, and it's a little like week-to-week sitcom, which is great, and, you know, I still think those are fun and hilarious. But things like Silicon Valley, Veep, Last Man on Earth, I'm sure there are more, you know, these kind of very good comedy series with plot that matters, and there are stakes to things, and you kind of get engaged. And I think, you know, obviously some of them rely a little heavily on like cliffhangers, and then they just reset themselves, which is, you know, I mean, Alec Berg from Silicon Valley, like, you know, did Seinfeld forever. Like, that show has a great plot, but at the end of the day, it's cyclical and repeats itself. Whereas I feel like Last Man on Earth consistently topped what they were doing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From, you know, a premise of a show being like one guy alone on the planet to him discovering another woman who he can't fucking stand.
Right.
And then meeting somebody even hotter that he's like super attracted to. And then like his brother is living on the International Space Station. And it's just, I mean, it sounds outlandish pitching it like that, but the way in which like each season would continue to like further what was happening in the world of the show, where you're literally watching a show build out from one guy alone on the planet to a small community to whatever it's going to end up being, I think is super engaging.
So do you think they had a plan beyond what they ended on?
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah,
like,
that does.
They're not going to get to go back and finish
because
that.
I heard they ended this season on a huge cliffhanger too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's them riding up their own ass. I think they've got a vague idea of what's going on. I think like Good Place too is another very, very good example of a half-hour sitcom that has a very engaging plot where you are really invested in the characters and whether or not they're gonna like make it out of this place or if they're gonna suffer for all of eternity in hell, which is what the premise of the show is.
No exit.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think it's kind of on another level.
I mean, do you think they'll ever make the guy successful on Silicon Valley, and then it's a different show where they're dealing with being
they're
wealthy
like
and
assholes
stuff?
who are
Yeah,
successful?
I mean, it seems to me they could only do this so many times where they're almost there, and then it gets pulled
out. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't know.
the thing is, they are pretty successful now. They have like $100 million VC or something.
Oh, okay. I
and it's like
seen this, the rest of this season. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's not like Jimmy Whale or whatever from. Is that Google? Sergey Brin, one of these dudes, maybe. I mean, that'd be a cool show too if it was just about some megalomaniacal. But they already have that character.
Yeah.
So who knows where they're gonna go with it. I got ideas if anybody wants to hire me to write for it. But
I'm sure you'd be great. Can I play a clip from my Garry Shandling interview?
Yeah.
Can
Let's
we
do it.
that?
Yeah.
I used stories that happened to me on the Larry Sanders Show, on the Tonight Show, stories that happened to me on all talk shows, stories that happened to me on all shows that I worked on. Other writers used stories from their shows, and it became diluted enough that you would often forget who did what to whom. But they were all based in some fact, and then I've already mentioned Peter Lasalle, and I like to refer to him as the Deep Throat character, like in All the President's Men, where there he was producing The Tonight Show, and occasionally I'd be shooting an episode of Sanders, and I'd call him up and I'd say, Peter, is there ever a circumstance where, or is this totally false, where Hank might fall asleep on the couch or not pay attention? And Peter would say, well, let me tell you a little story. So I think, and Judd Apatow and I still talk about it, we were not going to veer off what is basically the truth. And I think you can't go wrong if you stick to the truth. And then you can fly anywhere. You start to write something about a talk show that happened not to Letterman, and Letterman may say, that happened to me, and you realize there are generic things that happen about a guest who had one too many drinks or something. And I think we did one where I think David Spade at the beginning was a new comic and stopped by to Larry said, hey, you should stop by after the show and say hi because you just did a great job. And he goes, really, Larry? And that would be like Johnny Carson saying it. And then later in the show, Spade stops by and knocks on Larry's door, and Larry says, yeah, and Spade opens the door, and it's absolutely death, him trying to talk to David Spade, because Larry really didn't mean to come by, but hey, how you doing? And Spade says, oh, am I? And they get stuck, and they start talking about cars, and then we later found out that Letterman had that thing once where he evidently with somebody didn't know what to say, and they started to talk about cars. But that's coincidental.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, he's great. He was great.
Yeah.
But I think, when I was growing up, when I was 12 years old and beyond that, David Letterman was my hero. He was my escape. He was my life.
Yeah.
But if given the choice, if I could interview Letterman or Garry Shandling, I would always have picked Garry Shandling because of the fact that when Garry Shandling was doing both The Tonight Show and his first sitcom, he was alternating with Jay Leno as permanent guest host.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, I think it was going to come down between both of them, and then it may have led to Garry Shandling actually being the host of The Tonight Show. And he made a conscious decision at some point that he had no interest in doing a talk show night after night
Yeah.
because it just wasn't intellectually stimulating, and he wasn't learning anything, and there was no, as he talks about in there, truth in it, in talking to actors and actresses about their latest project. And he would much rather do something like It's Garry Shandling Show, or even more, you know, the Larry Sanders Show, that actually said something about people and how people live, and, you know, these broken men, Hank and Garry. While it was hysterical, it's also kind of a tragedy. And just the fact that he chose to do this much more interesting work than talk show host made me really love and respect him.
Absolutely. Well, it's a shame his, you know, film career never
Right,
took
yeah,
off. I mean, can you imagine like what he could have done, you know?
Yeah.
Although everybody said that about Louis C.K., and then his movie was the biggest piece of shit in the world. So who the hell knows?
I wonder how he feels about that.
I hope he feels bad about everything he's ever done.
Yeah, right. But yeah, and you know, Larry's kind of guru was Roy London, this acting teacher.
There's a doc about Roy London that's worth watching.
I haven't seen that. Yeah,
well, because you know all these people that came out of Roy London school, like Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, Sharon Stone.
Right.
I mean, it was nuts. In the doc, they even talk about it too. There was like this period in the '90s when like every woman that won an Oscar had been coached by Roy London.
Amazing. Well, yeah,
and he directed a ton of episodes of.
That's right.
And so I don't know if you know this, but I have a It's Garry Shandling Show crew jacket. It's a varsity cast.
Damn.
I actually have a lot of Shandling swag. I found a Larry Sanders Show crew sweater the other day that I own.
Wow, dude.
That I dug up at Rose Bowl. And anyway, so this Garry Shandling Show crew jacket, which I'll show you before you leave, it has a embroidered, you know, name on the cuff. And it says Roy on it.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know who.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it's Roy London's.
I'm sure.
I
right?
searched IMDb and tried to see if there was another Roy. And I think there was one Roy who was a guest star and did one episode. So it could be his.
Possible. Roy Scheider?
I can't remember. Yeah, from Jaws.
Roy Rogers?
Yeah, right. It was Roy Rogers.
And Sugar.
What? No.
Trigger.
Yeah.
But one of the points in the interview that really made him start to warm up to me was when I simply said, "Who is Roy London?" And I could see his face lit
just like
up.
we get to talk about it.
So happy to be able to expound on Roy London and his effects. So interviewing Garry Shandling was a highlight of my life, and I am so happy that Judd Apatow used footage from that interview in the documentary, which is basically the final record, I think, of Garry Shandling's life.
And
so
he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And what I was really impressed about, like, you know, with the doc was, you know, I mean, like I've said before a million times on this show and just to you in general, was like, I love Garry Shandling. That being said, there's a bunch of stuff like, you know, and I can't speak to his life. But I will say that there was a time when I saw those bonus features and was like, wow, this Sharon Stone stuff is amazing. Like, this is phenomenal and so riveting. And same with the Linda Doucette stuff. I think I was like 18 or 19 probably, like when I saw those things. And kind of a shift occurred after he died and I rewatched everything where it was a bit like, oh, here's a guy who dated this woman. I'm talking about Sharon Stone. They clearly talk about how the episode based on both of them is totally true to life, where they were together. He was guest hosting Carson. She had just started to break as an actress. Right. He got really nervous and panicked about her being more famous than him, which is what the episode's about, which is fantastic. He panicked. He dumped her. They broke up after however many years of knowing each other. And they just kind of never talked about it, and he couldn't have a conversation about it. And the way he dealt with it was by writing an episode of a television series, casting her in it, and then reenacting all that stuff. And then that was weird enough.
Right.
And then 25 years later or whatever, he shows back up again with 3 cameras, and they start talking about it there. And in a way, it is very truthful and very honest and very engaging and wonderful to watch. On the other hand, Sharon Stone, I think, is a saint if you watch that with all that in mind, and she's giving him kind of shit for it a little bit, for never having a conversation with her about what's going on.
Right.
Especially the Linda Doucette stuff, where he starts banging a girl on his show, puts her on it, fires her from it. Like, I mean, and what I really commend Judd Apatow for is that he didn't steer away from any of that stuff about Garry's life. I think I for one, used to idolize him in such a way that it was like, oh, I just want to be him.
Right.
And I think what growing up is a little bit is now seeing a lot of that stuff and being like, yes, he's my hero. But there's a lot in there that's very tragic and sad and not a great way to treat people.
And that can be said of Johnny Carson and David Letterman and Sid Caesar and Milton Berle.
Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
But I just thought that was really cool of Judd. And also I think it needed to be like 4 hours. I was very glad.
I agree, man.
Like,
so good.
I was very glad it was like
that
a
HBO let him do that.
Yeah,
was pretty special.
Very cool. I ran into Judd Apatow at LACMA the other day. I was seeing the Hockney portraits, and as you know, I take a lot of 35mm film photography, and I never go up to celebrities ever. And I saw Judd Apatow, and I was like, excuse me. I literally just like bumped right into him, and it was like, excuse me, can I take a photo of you? I don't want one of you. I just like, I'm taking street photography all the time. So like, you just happen to be just like, can I just snag a photo? And he was like, sure, yeah, no problem. So I like take out my camera, and he goes, you've done this before with me, right? And I was like, definitely not. I definitely would have remembered. Clicked. I knew it wasn't going to turn out because the sun was behind him and it was all dark. And then I walked away, and I've never felt dirtier in my life.
Not why?
Horrible.
Did he seem annoyed?
No, not really.
Yeah.
He was alone at LACMA, and I didn't turn the flash on because I specifically didn't want anybody to like flock to him. You know what I mean? Right. I was just very like click, fast. It's an artsy, fancy camera. I thought maybe he would be like, whatever. But
artisanal.
I hate that I did it, and I kicked myself.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. He loved it.
Sure.
I saw him in February. He was at the Patti LuPone concert.
Sure.
It was him and Leslie and Maud and the other daughter.
Yeah, Iris.
Yeah. And I think the daughters are into musical theater, and he probably was taking them to see Patti.
Nice.
But yeah, so that kind of ending to my little Garry Shandling adventure was the next day at 3 a.m. I got the alert, and a tweet came up, and Garry Shandling tweeted at me that he said, good job, John. If everyone had done your kind of preparation, my life would be so much easier.
That you gotta frame it.
It's beautiful. I recently printed it out and put it up in my little office cubicle.
Yeah, but we gotta get you a really high quality print of it, and then we gotta get it framed.
It's so cool.
We'll get on top of that. We'll do that.
Yeah,
that's a really wonderful thing to have.
And
he favorited one of my jokes once.
Do you remember the joke?
No, I screenshotted it though, so I have it somewhere.
Yeah, it's somewhere.
When he died, I posted about how much it meant to me to have him just be like,
"That's huge."
Oh, it was like he tweeted something out that was like, oh God, what was it? It was like, I'm going to do this thing or something, and I said, it was like him and Albert Brooks were doing something or something like that, and I tweeted at him and I went, yes, this is and it was all caps. I said, yes, this is fantastic. This makes me really happy. Why am I so angry? And it was like, I'm so angry. Like, this is making me so angry that this hasn't been done before. Why am I so angry? And he liked it. I don't know. It's stupid.
There you go.
But to have one of your heroes' favorite tweet is like amazing.
Yeah. That's
well, that's great, man. I remember I watched the show and was just like, oh yeah, this is John all over the place.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Well, I saw a bunch of movies. I could just run through them.
Yeah, please.
Just Paris, Texas, Wim Wenders film, phenomenal, just like the greatest movie ever. Super Dark Times on Netflix. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Great, really fantastic. 3 Days of the Condor.
I never saw it.
3 stars from me out of 5.
Robert Redford?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the new Jumanji. Not very good.
No, I wouldn't think so.
I saw Game Night. I saw Blockers. Those were fine. I saw Brad's Status. I saw Akira for the first time. Akira was
Great one, right?
Akira was very good. Saw The Firm. Firm was good. I'm just all over the place with what I'm seeing. But I will highly recommend Paris, Texas. I've had a weird sort of recent couple months.
You have.
Yeah. I think I am in a weird quarter life crisis sort of mode, where I think everything I ever wanted to do in my life was like work in film and television, and that was it. And like, so everything I wrote about was like about movies or TV. Like even like the movie like I sold is about like a guy who works in television. Like my shows were always about that. Like I just like loved shows about shows I love, which is how I got into Garry Shandling. Like I just loved the entertainment industry. And then something happened, I think, where now I want to just go take pictures of houses from movies, and I don't want to write, and I don't want to do anything anymore except that.
Ever?
So there. No, it's not. No, not ever. But I think that there's just like a weird point where like I want to just. I've been driving over to like, and I'm sure it's me being a total escape, like trying to just escape and like zone out, or it's my form of meditation or something. But like, I've been going to Palmdale and Lancaster and like the Mojave Desert, and like going to Dougie's house from Twin Peaks season 3, or going to, say the house from Beethoven in Pasadena with Charles Grodin, that film, which is, right near the Space Jam house, which is right next door to the house from Liar Liar. And then, and then also, I watched Paris, Texas, and then that next day I went to all the locations from Paris, Texas that were in LA, and then I started categorizing all the ones that were in Texas that I want to go to. And I just don't think that anything in my life has ever made me happier than when I went to the church from The Graduate the other day, and it was open, and I went inside, and it hadn't been changed at all, and I turned around and looked up at the glass, and it's exactly the same.
You beat on it?
And then I got up there, and I did, and I beat on it, and
oh
I
my
was
God,
like,
Morgan,
holy fucking
Jesus.
shit! Nothing in my life will ever make me this happy. I could work on a million TV shows, a million movies. Nothing will be better than driving alone in my Prius to a bumfuck part of California and popping my head into a
Listening
movie.
to Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes. It is literally the closest thing I think you can get to like time travel or like peeking into an alternate dimension.
Right.
It is literally like walking into a movie.
Well, you know what I think that about is Griffith Observatory and Rebel Without a
and
Cause,
Rebel Without a Cause,
because the outside hasn't changed at all,
Sure.
and it's really like you're walking onto the set
Yeah.
of Rebel Without a Cause. And it used to be, up until about 2002, it was even the same inside, and it still kind of is, like in the foyer part with the big pendulum.
Mm-hmm.
But and they actually had the original seats that they had in the actual auditorium.
That is cool.
So you could sit in like James Dean's seat.
That is amazing.
But those were all taken out in
Right.
2002 when they put new nice seats in and stuff. But essentially, going up there is still like being on the set of Rebel Without a Cause, which is really cool.
There are a few places that are completely unchanged.
Yeah.
I went to this place in Arcadia called Rod's Grill. It was used in Mad Men as the location of the Howard Johnson's diner.
Right.
And it's been there since like 1957 or 1952 or something. Completely exactly the same inside. It's just all turquoise booths and leather, and then the rock wall and stuff. It's like what Cafe 101 like tried to like remake, but it's real. And that's just like been a huge part of my life recently, like since I saw you, because last time we did the podcast, we recorded, and then that night I drove up to Vancouver to go see my girlfriend, which took like 3 or 4 days, and I went to Yosemite and enjoyed my time in nature and stuff, but then also swung by Snoqualmie, Washington, which is the home to Twin Peaks, and so I ate at the Double R Diner.
What was that like?
That was.
I've heard mixed things about the Double R, actual Double R.
That was that was like this life-changing experience
really?
for me, where it was like I would be so content being a location scout, like I can't believe it. All I want to do is drive around alone and go to places.
How was the cherry pie?
That's it. It was fine. I mean, it wasn't that. Like, what was
It's been so built up.
what was great is, like, I went to the Great Northern and saw the waterfall, and I was going just fully as a Twin Peaks fan, and then didn't fully realize, like, oh, this is just a gorgeous, giant, majestic thing from nature. And
you came for Twin Peaks, but you stayed for nature.
Stayed because it was gorgeous. Like, I just fell in love with the Pacific Northwest in general. Like, I just love fog and trees and whatever, probably because of Twin Peaks.
Sure.
But I don't know, man. It was just this type of thing.
Did you go to Laura Palmer House?
No, that I'm killing myself because it was like a half an hour away.
Yeah,
but I just lost light, and so I was like, I can't shoot at night here. But I did go to the sheriff's station. I went to the Fat Trout Trailer Park. I went to I mean, it was just like on another level cool. I was driving around with the biggest smile on my face, listening to the Twin Peaks season 3 soundtrack, which was like all those great like Sharon Van Etten songs, and just out of this world amazing. And so I came back to LA and was just totally galvanized by like, this is all I want to do now.
Right.
And so I've started creating this map, which will be an app and whatever. But going all over the place. Then I did all the Twin Peaks locations here in California because they shot the show here. Like, the first 2 seasons are just all Malibu. Right. Hardly any of it's in Washington.
Well, the pilot was in Washington, and then
all here.
The series
all
was
here.
Yeah.
I mean, just, Burbank.
Right. Yeah.
And then that spurred me off on this like old movie locations and things like that. So I've just been like really into this deep dive, and then I had to start a new job. And so then
can you talk about?
Yes, I can talk about it. Funny story. If anybody heard a cut there, it's because I did talk about it and then realized I couldn't.
You explained the whole thing.
I explained the entire thing and then realized
really cool.
I couldn't do it. But
it's a format that is not too prevalent, but was prevalent once upon a time that I loved on TV.
It is, and and so what I'll say is that I'm directing and consulting for a new Netflix series that's 10 episodes long, and let's just say it's very much in the vein of a show that John kind of worked on. It's very popular in England, what's really amazing about it is it's like groups of comedians. We tape for like an hour and a half or like 2 hours, and we cut it down to like 45 minutes because it like breathes. Like it's just like conversational and funny, and people being hilarious.
Yeah.
And like the guests we're getting are really good. And so I'm like very, very excited about it.
That's
and I'm
awesome.
having a really good time. And it's definitely like the type of job that I've always kind of like wanted.
That's so cool.
And yet I go into work.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
great.
much. And yet I still go into work every day, and I'm like, I want to be in the middle of the desert looking at fucking Star Wars tracks in the dunes,
Yeah. Well.
But so that's what I do on weekends now. And then kind of late at night, I'll go to some.
It's funny you say Star Wars because never his mind on where he was,
Yeah.
what he was doing.
Right. That's
so,
true.
You should listen to your.
No, so I'm very happy. I love the gig. But yeah, it's been funny because I've been like leaving work actually at like 7 or 8, and then driving to, like I've had to get into night photography. Like I've had to learn how to shoot photos of houses at night. I'm gonna put a little zine together actually, like a nice kind of photo book of exteriors of houses from films.
Wow, that's so cool.
Won't that be fun?
Yeah.
So you'll kind of like open it up, and you'll see like a very famous house, like maybe the Whatever Happened to Baby Jane house was the first one, I think, is my plan. And then, but like I won't say like what they're from.
Right. Yeah.
It'll be kind of indecipherable. And what it'll be great is it'll be like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane right next to the house from Space Jam. And like you'll just be like, I know that looks familiar, but I don't know why.
Right.
And so that's the hope anyway.
And my place is right by the studio, so one night if you want company, pick me up. That's really
I will.
fun.
Anytime you want to go do any of that stuff.
Go to Downey.
Well, I have a Downey day I gotta do. Well, let me pull up a little bit of the map and kind of just nobody can like see this, but I'll kind of explain how it works. So
he's got so many locations pinned on there.
It's really nuts.
All over America.
I really don't want anyone to steal this idea. But I'm really thrilled about it because the problem for me was like I was driving to say like Santa Clarita, and I would go to for example, Lindsay Weird's house from Freaks and Geeks is there in Santa Clarita.
Oh wow.
And also near there was like Dougie Jones's house from season 3 of Twin Peaks, and also
Dougie Jones.
Hello. so I would know that there were other things there. Like I knew that like vaguely like the house from Weeds is there, just things like that. I'm speaking mostly to television because I guess that's like some Santa Clarita stuff. But the point would be that I'd be up there and I'd be like, how the fuck, like what is around me? How do I know that there's an app that exists and it's just a list? Like it just is kind of ridiculous. And so I just started like compiling this thing, and now it has over like 800 spots.
Jesus.
As well as I started putting in old homes of the people, and also like anything that's in green you can eat or drink at, so it's like a bar from a movie or show. Like
right.
So for example, like Poor Richards from The Office is like I don't know if you watch the NBC Office.
Of course I
yeah
did,
yeah that's like where they have all their events and shit. It's up in like Burbank, so it's like hell yeah, I'm gonna go. Like it's just some shitty bar. Because it also happens to be right next to, for example, like the Meyer building from Double Indemnity or what. I'm just clicking on places.
Is
now.
it ever frustrating that a lot of places have been torn down?
Oh, yeah. The worst thing is like, well, did you hear DePar's closed in Studio City? Like, doesn't that just break your heart?
Ridiculous,
I think to me, it's like, it feels like when a celebrity you love dies, except the difference is like you knew them because you get to go there.
That's right.
So I think that the main difference with a lot of these houses is you show up and you look at the still from the film and see what it looks like now. For the most part, it's just that they've added a fence. Kind of like the Brady Bunch house has this horrible fence around it. I would say that that's the main thing. Everybody just put a fence up. It's not even because the movie's famous. Like I went to the house from Paris, Texas, and I guarantee people aren't swinging by their house all the time.
Right.
It's not like the house from Nightmare on Elm Street or something. And there's still just this garish, like ugly fence around it. People just have I don't think they understand where they live. I don't think maybe they necessarily know it was in something, especially if it's very old. Or they just have no connection to it. And I think people fell in love with like ugly stucco and like, just this gross shit. But when a diner closes, or when something like amazing like DuPar's closes, it really hits me hard in a way I can't describe.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up because I grew up in a town called Lincroft, New Jersey, and there was the Lincroft Inn right in the center of town, and the Lincroft Inn was built in 1697.
Okay.
And was like a main place that played into the Revolutionary War. And it's the fucking Lincroft Inn. It's what Lincroft is.
Yeah.
Today they fucking tore it down.
Awful.
And I saw a picture of it and I almost cried. It was like I can't believe people were so the hubris of someone in 2018 to say, let's tear this place down and put some shitty new restaurant up. I can't believe it.
It's
dude.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's
and
nuts.
Here it's so bad. Like that, the house from Sunset Boulevard was torn down.
I know.
Come on.
I know. There's a lot of that, and I think the more things like this, hopefully, what I'm trying to do exists, like the more people will know.
Yeah.
And like this place, Rod's Grill in Arcadia, like it is so small and tiny and you wouldn't know it's there, and it looks so unassuming, and you go in and it's like, this should exist so everybody knows what life was like in the 50s, without all the racism and horrible. I mean, that's still happening now. There's literal Nazis in the street. But what I do mean is that you can show up and you're like, look at this. Like, this is what things were like. And this is what I guarantee it's the same fucking milkshake recipe for 100 years. You know? That's why I want to go to that Bob's Big Boy in Downey, because it used to be Johnny's Broiler, which is in everything. And so yeah, there's just a lot of that. And you know who's keeping it alive? Guy Fieri. No, I'm kidding. But he is. Anywho.
Well, Matthew Weiner has been involved. They were going to tear down Norm's on La Cienega.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I love Norm's. And it's every time I go in there, it's packed.
Right.
Yeah.
They were going to fucking tear it down.
Right.
And he actually made the effort to go out and make a speech in front of it. And he said, this place is like a museum.
Yep.
And, so many screenwriters have written here.
I
and
love
just
Norm's.
He made this amazing speech and basically, I think, sort of single-handedly saved the place.
Great.
So yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
Well, I went to the diner from Reservoir Dogs the other day in Eagle Rock. Same thing. It looks exactly the same inside.
Yeah.
It is not changed a bit.
Right.
And that is great. I mean, and that's a relatively new film, kind of. Like, I mean, not at this point. It's over 20 years old. But relative to a lot of things. So when you get to somewhere that's, from a film from the 60s or 70s and it really hasn't changed, it's very cool.
Well, do you have the other diner, Johnny's, on Wilshire and Fairfax?
I definitely have that in there.
Reservoir Dogs, yeah. Because that's in a million films, and it closed like 20 years ago, but they just use it for filming locations. It's no longer a functioning restaurant, which is a shame.
Now, this is a tangent, but my mom just texted me. All right, so we had to put down our family dog, Louie, our basset
sorry,
hound.
man.
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with him except he was like getting aggressive. He had bit my ex. Then he bit my mom, and it was like, you can't have a dog that bites people.
Right.
And it was because he was having some sort of dementia or something.
Mm-hmm.
He had been on Prozac, like dog Prozac.
How old was he?
Not very old. I mean, he was probably my brother got him when he was 16, and my brother is now 25.
Okay.
9. And he kind of started to lose it. And then we just had to put down my cat, kind of a couple months later, who I had when I was 13. So that cat lived a long life, and was totally fine, but had kidney cancer. And now there's one cat left. And I was talking to my brother, and I was like, well, we'll know if our parents are just murdering our animals if they try to put down Nietzsche. I have a cat named Nietzsche, by the way. I named her when I was 15. And I was like,
where's Karl Marx? Is he there?
Exactly. If they try to put down Nietzsche, then we'll know.
Right, yeah, that's a problem.
And my mom just texted me, and she's like, Nietzsche really wants to go outside. We haven't let the cat go outside because they live in the middle of the desert, and there's coyotes and everything. She's like, do you think I should let him outside? I'm like, you guys are trying to fucking murder our animals. I'm going to text her back and be like, no fucking way. Trying to kill all our animals or what? Jesus.
There's no kind of fence situation that
there is, but
Nietzsche
the cat just
goes
right over it.
Of course. What am I thinking? Yeah, keep that cat inside.
I'm texting my mom back. I think no, probably not a good idea. You don't send a cat out into the wild wilderness of Arizona.
No, not
where they
these
filmed
days.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure at the Circle K on Southern and Hardy. That's the craziest thing now is this shit's all in my brain.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
that's great, though. Your encyclopedia.
Really
were there
cool.
actual locations in San Dimas, or did they use other places as San Dimas? For
It's all Phoenix. It's all
Oh,
Camelback.
wow.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, the whole thing's like Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I know, right? There's just a lot of, and that's where I'm from, and that's kind of interesting. I think people kind of know vaguely, but and then there's also things that I've been trying to find myself. For example, The House from Real Life, Albert Brooks's film, which I love so much. That movie takes place in Phoenix, where I'm from, and a lot of the locations are from Phoenix. Like the mall is the Scottsdale Fashion Square Mall, the police station is the police, all this stuff. But the house at the end of the cul-de-sac where the Yeager family lives and where Albert Brooks lives, I don't think is in Phoenix. It's 100510. That's the number, and then across the street it's 1051 or something. And I have looked. I put that number into Google. This is how I spent my Sunday. I looked at every address in Arizona that has that number. Did it on Google Street View. Couldn't find it. Then I was like, okay, it must be California. It kind of looks like Pasadena to me. I put it in and I looked at California. I can't find it, and it's driving me nuts, and I think about it every day. I think about it for hours. And then also this woman was supposed to text me back because they shot Other Side of the Wind, the Orson Welles film, at a house in Carefree, Arizona. And she was like, oh, I have the address. I'll tell it to you. And I was like, great, what is it? And she goes, I'll tell it to you. And I was like, what is that? Can you tell me? What are you talking about? And she's like, I'm not near my house. Let me tell you tomorrow. And I was like, hi, can you tell me? And she's like, yes, I have the info. I'll let you know. I'm like, are you just trolling me?
She's toying with you.
Is this interesting to anybody at all that I'm talking about houses nobody's seen?
I think it's more interesting that you've got OCD, actually.
Yeah.
Like amateur
no, I know.
psychologist.
Yeah, I don't think this is interesting to people.
No, I'm fascinated.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, I think... Anyway, if you live in a town and there's a movie or something shot in your town and it happens to not be, California or something, and some weird movie shot in your backyard, please email me at the untitledwebseries@gmail.com, and I'll check it out.
Are you aware of a Aaron Spelling show from the 70s called Family?
No.
It was a show with Christy McNichol, Seda Thompson, Meredith Baxter Birney, and James Broderick, who is Matthew Broderick's father.
Oh, interesting.
And it was just about this like typical American family, and it was shot in Pasadena.
Okay.
And the house they show in the opening credits is like iconic and like beautiful, like upper middle class, like Pasadena house. Yeah. And the pilot, that it was actually originally a miniseries, and then it went to series. And they shot it in the house, the miniseries, but then when it went to series, they shot it again at like Twin Peaks on sound stages. Mm-hmm. And like the sets are so much better in the miniseries because it's like this kind of house that's lived in and dirty and kind of like, and then like the studio ones, it's just so like clean and pristine, and it just was not. Well, I could never get into the show because of that.
I was talking about this with one of our writers the other day, like how funny it is that, you know, after Lost, you know, came out, there were all these pilots for these shows that were sci-fi driven in nature to kind of capitalize on the Lost thing. And also, you know, Lost had the most expensive pilot of all time. So during this kind of period in the early aughts, there were like these NBC, CBS, Fox shows where they would have like a $20 million pilot where like planes were falling out of the sky, you know, like people were getting swallowed by sinkholes. It was like the best, most craziest action thing you'd ever seen. Right. And then episode 2 would be like the worst cave set you've ever seen, and the guy would come in and be so like, true. You know, hey, how's it going? You know, like it's fucking Gilligan's Island.
What happened to all the cool stuff?
Yeah, what happened to all the cool stuff? It's like literally like, you know, they bring in some fucking Roland Emmerich to do the pilot, and then they're like, now go make a series out of it.
Prison Break was like that.
Prison Break was like that. Yeah. My example was Terra Nova, which was like this show that was like about people traveling back in time to go, you know, coexist with like the prehistoric dinosaur period. And then what ends up happening is it becomes a cop show, and it's like, wait, so this is just a police procedural with dinosaurs? Like, what the fuck? So bad. Okay, so you wanted to talk about the woman who died recently. What was her name?
The late great Margot Kidder.
Margot Kidder, yes.
Margot Kidder was a Canadian actress. Yeah. And she'd done a couple of Brian De Palma films in the early 70s. And there's actually a very interesting episode of Dick Cavett where it's Janis Joplin and Margot Kidder and Gloria Swanson.
Insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It really is. It actually is what you would think. It's not one of those things that sounds better than it is. Because, I mean...
That to me sounds like a great movie pitch. Those people all go do Dick Cavett. Totally. What's that hour-and-a-half long movie of all these 3 women showing up to go do Dick Cavett?
Right.
Cavett.
So... I mean, Janis Joplin is completely Janis Joplin, like drinking whiskey and, you know, completely high. And Gloria Swanson is completely silent movie star. Mm-hmm. Gloria Swanson comes out dressed to the nines. Beautiful. And stunningly beautiful, even at age 70 or whatever she was. And then Margot Kidder comes out in what basically seems like a nightgown and bare feet. Bare feet, she comes out. And I could only imagine what Gloria Swanson was thinking when Margot Kidder came out with bare feet.
Did she not have a publicist? Like, I know that she had mental health problems. Like, is that part of that?
It might be. It seemed like she was kind of maybe trying too hard to be alternative or wacky or whatever.
Yeah. How old is she at this time?
Probably early to mid-20s,
okay,
I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so she gets cast as Lois Lane by Richard Donner for the Superman movie in 1978. And to me, I think the original Lois Lane on the Superman TV show from the 50s was Noelle Neal. Mm-hmm. She was great. She was an amazing Lois Lane. And I think they kind of improved on her with Margot Kidder. And she definitely had this Rosalind Russell, His Girl Friday vibe, which is, I think, why they hired her.
That's how I feel about the Donna from the Fire Walk With Me movie. She's so much better than the Donna from this series.
Really? You think so?
You got a little bit, but anyway.
Wait, you're making fun of me?
No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. She's really good in the movie. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I wonder why they didn't bring her back.
I think it was just a conflict. It was just a scheduling conflict.
Yeah.
I don't think it had anything to do with with her performance.
Anyway, so to me,
it always comes back to Twin Peaks.
Right.
I'm very sorry.
No, that's fine. But I don't think that Superman is that interesting of a character on his own. Certainly not sort of in the movies. Maybe in the comic books, which I was never that into, like reading comic books and things like that. So maybe it's different in comics. But I think in the movies, you need a Lois Lane to sell the notion that this guy is interesting and cool and worthy, and you need someone to bounce off
him.
Right him. And it's like
human. You need to humanize him completely.
Exactly. And it's like this, if it's done right, it's this really interesting love triangle with Lois Lane and Clark Kent and Superman. And she played it perfectly, and she was Rosalind Russell, and she is the ultimate Lois Lane, and they have never been able to recapture that in subsequent, and they've even got better actresses.
Yeah, did Amy Adams do it, right?
She just doesn't make any impression. I have no memory of her. I've seen the movie.
Well, that's also the film's fault. That's a bad film.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the one that did it in the Bryan Singer movie, Kate Bosworth or whatever.
Who would have thought Bryan Singer would make a bad movie? You know, pedophile Bryan Singer. I'm fully comfortable calling Bryan Singer a pedophile.
I'll sign off on that.
Jeffrey Epstein Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't even want to
lots of people going there.
Bill Clinton 20 times. Yeah.
Woody.
Do you know what I heard about Bill Clinton in that island? I heard that when he would fly there on a private jet, he would blindfold himself and have women of different nationalities below him, and then he would guess their nationality.
Do you believe that?
Yes.
That seems so crazy.
No, but I believe that everybody's having, pedophile sex on that island for sure. Fully.
I don't know. And oh god, the Alan Dershowitz too.
Yeah.
Dersh. Did you ever see Reversal of Fortune?
No.
It's pretty good. It's about Klaus von Bülow, who may or may not have murdered his wife, and Ron Silver plays Alan Dershowitz, and he's actually cool in the movie, which he clearly is not in real life. But getting back to Margot Kidder, what I find fascinating actually is that when I brought her up to you earlier, you had no idea,
no concept
who I was talking about.
Yeah, I'd heard that she died, but I didn't know who she was.
Right. Can you stop for a sec?
Yep.
So I was fascinated that you had no idea who Margot Kidder was, and this happens quite often with you because it seems to me so random and scattershot, like what you know and what you don't know.
Isn't that true for everybody on the planet?
Not me, not the people I grew up with.
Yeah. Okay.
There was.
I don't know, man. You've got a pretty encyclopedic knowledge of stuff. Don't you find that when you talk to your friends about, say, Dorothy Kilgallen or something, that your friend is like, who the fuck is that? And you're like, well, we grew up in the same.
I would never bring up Dorothy Kilgallen to a friend.
All right.
Not a straight friend.
Just on this show, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But do you know what I'm saying? Because for me, it's half of the shit I talk about, I can only talk about with, your fellow film snobs in general. So my point of reference is so scattershot, I think, because it just comes in these small waves where it's I just happen to be going down a Wim Wenders roll this week, so I'm just watching all that shit, whereas I didn't grow up with him or have any idea who he was.
Right. Well, I mean, that didn't used to be the case in the 80s. There was kind of there was much more of a common culture. My dad knew about all the movies. It seems much more to me scattershot now.
I also think my parents don't know half the references I'm talking about, even when I'm talking about old stuff.
Right.
I think they're bad. I think people are bad at names, though, John. I think that's what it is too, because I think I'm very good at names. Where even my girlfriend will watch stuff and she'll know who that is, but has no idea who the name is.
So this is a me thing then.
Well, I think you and I are similar, where we're both very good at names.
Right. Okay.
Once you tell me about somebody, or I see their face, or see a movie that they're in, it never escapes my brain.
Wow. Okay.
But if I don't know who it is, I'll never know.
Okay. So
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I get it.
Whereas I think a lot of people watch tons of movies and shows and then have no idea who directed it, what the name is, whatever.
Yeah.
We have a similar brain.
Well, so what I've done is I've done.
Oh, you're setting up a game.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been just like interrupting.
Yeah, you're.
Well, let's get
fucking
back
me up
into
here.
more. Let's. No, sorry.
talk
Set
about
up
more
your game.
houses.
Let me do. Dun 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 dun.
Down
Let me
me.
spray this computer duster and start the game.
Please, it's official. So I've devised this game called "What Do Millennials Know?" But I guess we should just really call it
What does Morgan know? Yeah. We
and
could
it's-
call a different millennial every week.
That'd be awesome.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Just bring in a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scattershot questions. Some of them are very easy. Some of them are more difficult.
Okay.
And it's politics and music and
Okay,
movies and
great. I
TV.
love this. This is
Here we
great.
go.
Okay, wonderful. And we're gonna do all of them. Don't skip any of them.
No.
Okay, great.
I'm fucking committed.
Okay, great.
Who played Edith Bunker on All in the Family?
Gene Stapleton.
Very good. See, I wouldn't have thought you would have known that. Who was Richard Nixon's vice president who resigned in disgrace?
That I don't know.
Okay. It was Spiro Agnew.
Never even heard that name.
And I'll draw. And you know what? It was like the hugest story.
Uh-huh.
It was the biggest story in the country.
What did he do that was
He had like
disgraceful?
slush funds and was taking
Okay.
kickbacks.
Jesus.
And it became like a big thing to have like a Spiro Agnew watch,
Mhm.
like a Mickey Mouse watch, except it was Spiro Agnew, and that was like the edgy, funny thing. At the
That's
time.
hilarious.
But
That's a
yeah.
really funny joke.
Yeah, just remember the Spiro Agnew watch. Now I
Great.
dropped
Yeah,
some knowledge.
sure.
Okay.
Spiro Agnew.
Yeah,
What a
yeah.
great weird name.
Yeah, he was awful. He was worse than Nixon. He's a disgrace. Okay. Trust me on this one. What later sitcom star played the wife in It's a Wonderful Life?
Oh God, I can picture her face.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
She won an Oscar for From Here to Eternity,
God, dude, I don't know.
playing a prostitute, which is very much against type.
I don't know.
Donna Reed.
Oh, okay.
And she
See, I
went
don't
on
know.
to play the Donna Reed show, where she was like
Yeah,
housewife.
see, I don't
and-
know
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Donna Reed. All right. Name the two men who ran Bill Clinton's War Room in 1992.
I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
So there goes my thing about if I see somebody, I never forget it.
Right out
I'm
the
literally
window.
proving I did.
And they're still both like around.
Yeah, I don't
Certainly
know.
one of them.
I don't know.
It's James Carville.
Oh
and-
yeah, it's that fucking bald freak.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
freak. He looks like he's like a reptile.
Yeah, he is.
A human reptile. And then George Stephanopoulos.
Okay.
Like, this is one that you fucking have to get this. Okay. And it's so
God, I
easy.
hope I do. This is
It's
getting
ridiculous.
embarrassing.
Name the lead singer of Pearl Jam.
Eddie Vedder.
Very good.
Okay, cool.
That was ridiculous.
I was born in 1991.
Right.
Okay.
And he was on Twin Peaks, so
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
hard to
If George Stephanopoulos had been on Twin Peaks, had been one of those musical numbers at the end, I would have definitely got it.
What early 70s musical TV family was based on the real-life singing group The Cowsills?
Oh, is this like Carpenters or? Oh, it's not the Carpenters, but it's like it's a. 70s...
The Carpenters wasn't a TV show.
Oh, they were just a family. They were just
Yeah,
a family.
the brother
This
and
is
sister.
This is a TV show about a family who sings.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's the Osmonds.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I don't know.
All right, I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, give me another hint.
It starred David Cassidy and Susan Day
I don't know.
and Shirley Jones.
I don't know.
The Partridge Family.
Oh, okay.
Have you never heard of the Partridge
I've
Family?
heard of them, but I've never
I
seen
think
it.
I love you, but what am I
Yeah,
so
I've never
afraid?
seen the show. That's a Partridge Family song. That's a
Yeah,
good song.
and it was a big hit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't play any of their own instruments. It was like the Monkees.
Sure.
If you know who the Monkees are.
I know who the Monkees
They're
are.
our
Yeah.
closing
Well, the
theme.
Monkees have some good songs too,
Oh yeah. Well,
and they had great writers.
yeah.
You know, who
absolutely.
wrote-
Neil
who wrote those
Diamond
songs.
and
yeah.
Okay. You'll get this one.
I hope.
Who directed the 1972 Best Picture winner Cabaret? Wow, dude. This shot. See, it's scattershot. I'm telling you.
Is it like Bob Fosse or something?
Bob Fosse?
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
very
great.
Good, very
oh, great.
nice.
Cool. Nice.
Awesome.
Because I know he directed. You know, too. He was a choreographer who directed.
Okay. This is
I'm so happy I got that one.
this is historic.
This is getting really embarrassing. I'm so glad. I
Oh,
got
you have no idea. No.
no.
Who was the first female vice presidential candidate in 1984?
Oh man, I don't know.
She was Walter Mondale's ran against Reagan and Bush. Geraldine Ferraro.
I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of 80s SNL.
You know, the person that did her on SNL was Mary Gross.
Okay.
And they weren't that political that year. And I think Gary Kroger was Walter Mondale. And I don't know who was Reagan.
Is that when Ebersol was doing it? Or who took over?
That year was Dick Ebersol, yeah.
So maybe that's why
he
they
did
were
it
less
for.
political. See, I know who Dick Ebersol. Why should I know that?
Well, you're in TV.
I guess. But I didn't know who the Partridge Family was.
That seems crazy.
That's
to
what I'm
me,
saying.
yeah.
The disparity here
Shirley
is
Jones.
vast.
I think you would actually maybe enjoy the part. Not that it's great, but it's just interesting. Like Richard Pryor's on an episode.
Oh, great! Yeah.
And Rob Reiner.
Yeah. Richard Pryor is in fucking Lost Highway.
I remember that. He's like a mechanic or something.
Yeah, that's
right.
right. Yeah.
Who played God in the 1978 film Oh God?
Oh, that's George Burns.
Very good.
Yeah, and there's a sequel too. And then John Denver is the lead, right? And
right.
John Denver died in a plane crash. That I know.
And he probably said "Oh God" while he was going.
Yeah, nice, but, John. Nice.
But who played the wife?
And
John Denver's wife in that movie.
See, I don't know that.
Terry Garr.
I don't know who Terry Garr is.
Get the fuck out of here.
Who's Terry Garr?
You don't know who Terry Garr is.
Well, I know she's in Oh God.
Dude. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I've seen him. I've seen it.
Fucking shocked. All right. I'm going to send you an email later, and you're going to find out exactly who Terry Garr is.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you'll know this because you lived in New York. In what building did John Lennon and Lauren Bacall live in New York City in the 70s?
Oh, were they in the Dakota? Or
very
good.
Yeah,
they were.
Yeah,
okay. I couldn't say it. Dakota
where,
from Rosemary's Baby, and where John Lennon was shot. See, if it has to do with a movie location, I'm all about it.
And the Polanski connection to Charles Manson, and Charles Manson's connection to the Beatles, and then John Lennon gets shot outside Dakota.
What's Manson's connection to the Beatles?
He claimed that
Helter
the
Skelter.
White Album was telling him
Helter Skelter,
to kill all those people. All right.
Yeah, Race War.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like how he knew the Beach Boys, like how he knew Dennis
Yeah, no,
Wilson.
it wasn't that
okay,
close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, he was best friends with Ringo.
They probably met. Who directed Streetcar Named Desire, On the Waterfront, and Death of a Salesman?
Oh, Kazan?
Very good.
Yeah. I love Kazan.
Kazan's great, although he sang like a bird in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee. Yeah. And that was a controversy when he got his honorary Oscar.
I know. And actually, I saw his daughter speak at Film Forum.
Okay.
And somebody asked her about that.
That's like, come on.
Yeah, but what does she know? You know?
Yeah. I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
Poor woman. From whom did Elizabeth...
That's the bell toll.
Yeah. For thee. From whom did Elizabeth Taylor steal Eddie Fisher?
Oh, we've talked about this on the show. You've literally looked into my eyes and said this man's name. Or no, woman's name.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Taylor stole Eddie Fisher from...
Eddie Fisher.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, man.
And you know Eddie Fisher is the mother of...
Carrie Fisher.
And Carrie Fisher's mother is...
Oh, Debbie Reynolds.
Yes, very good.
Wow,
very
Debbie
good.
Reynolds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was like horrible because Debbie Reynolds was like America's sweetheart and Elizabeth Taylor was this big hussy.
Sure, yeah, right.
Name the two current senators from California.
What the fuck? You fucking asshole. That's so funny. Yeah, I know my councilman is Adam Schiff, but I don't know.
Very good. That was my next question, actually,
okay,
literally.
Yeah, I know Adam Schiff. Man, I don't know.
Can you name one?
No, I don't think so right now.
You've got Diane Feinstein.
Oh, I know Diane
who's
Feinstein.
been there for years.
Yeah.
And a newbie who replaced the mom in tennis shoes. Her name escapes me right now, but the newbie is Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah. I've heard about, yeah,
she's
of course.
great.
Yeah. Whoops.
It's all right.
It doesn't have to do with movies.
Right.
Just where they're made.
How many points of light did George H.W. Bush talk about?
I've never heard of this.
Wow, dude. All right. Yeah, it was a big
like
thing.
a UFO he saw?
No, it was like part of his speech, and it was like bad, and everyone made fun of it for years.
Oh, okay.
He was like 1,000 points of light, and no one knew what the fuck he was talking about.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
All right, so that's okay. What cartoon did Mike Judge create for MTV in 1991?
Beavis and Butthead.
Very good.
Yeah. And then, spin off of that is Daria.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you like Daria?
I love Daria.
Okay.
Daria is one of the things I think that formed my sensibility.
That's great.
As a young adult.
Yeah.
Because I saw it as a really young kid, and it was sort of the first comedy I'd ever seen where someone was like sarcastic or sardonic.
Right.
And like kind of smarter than everybody,
Right.
and everything went over the adults' heads.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just like feeling like her, and I really identified with her. And it's so funny that like I think I must have seen that show when I was like 6 or 7 or something, and I'm like so thankful that it existed because I think it really informed the way in which I interact with the world.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I actually talked to Mike Judge about it. I was working at the Museum of Television and Radio at the time, and they were doing the Paley Fest for King of the Hill.
Uh-huh.
He was there, and I went up and started talking to him, and I asked him, what he thought of Daria, because there was some controversy at the time, because his Beavis and Butthead contract allowed MTV to take any of the characters and do their own thing with them.
Sucks. Yeah.
And he was not happy.
Right.
And I asked him, like, well, what do you think of the show? And he started complaining. I guess he had seen the pilot or whatever. And I actually told him, I said, a few episodes into the second season, it's actually pretty good. You should check it out again. And he actually seemed open. He was like, oh, well, that's good to know. I will check it out.
It is good. Like,
yeah.
I feel for him with the rights thing.
Right.
I feel for him, though.
For what seminal grunge band was Chris Novoselic the bass player?
Is it like Nirvana?
Nirvana, you got it.
Okay.
Name one Supreme who isn't Diana Ross.
Phil Spector.
No.
I don't know.
You've got Mary Wilson,
Okay.
Cindy Birdsong, or Florence Ballard.
I picked Florence Ballard.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. That's like one of my favorite SNL sketches when Norm is playing Stan Hooper or whatever on this Christian biblical show where they ask you the question, then tell you the answer, and then say, did you know that? And he just keeps winning every week because he goes, yeah, I knew that. And everybody else is like, oh, no, I didn't know that. And it's like, what about you, Stan? Did you know that? And he goes, yeah, I knew that. It's such a funny idea.
Pretty funny.
Yeah.
Just 2 more questions.
Okay.
What is the title of Michael Jackson's mega hit 1983 album?
Is that bad? Thriller?
Thriller.
No,
Good.
okay. Yeah.
And the last question is, name Bill Clinton's attorney general. She burned Waco to the ground. David Koresh to the ground.
Is it Janet Reno?
Janet Reno. You did pretty well.
I did
pretty
better
well.
than I thought
Yeah,
I would.
yeah.
Can you name another movie directed by David Lean
What do you mean another?
besides Lawrence of Arabia? That's the only one I have for you.
That's it?
Yeah. Well, I didn't come up with a quiz. I'll have to come up with a quiz for you. I like this. This is a fun game.
We'll do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a new feature. David Lean directed a little movie called Bridge on the River Kwai.
There you go. You did it. He also did Dr. Zhivago. I would
The
have
great
accepted
Dr. Zhivago.
that. Okay. Well, I think that's all the time we have.
Okay.
But I'm glad we're doing this again, and there will be another one, and there will be less of a gap between the episodes.
That's our promise to you.
I would even dare to say potentially next week.
I'm down,
we'll
man.
have one.
Yeah. And I want to go to Downey too. Maybe
let's
we can
go to Downey
kill
on, like,
2 birds with
Sunday,
1 stone. Richard and Linda.
Well, what we should do is bring my Zoom recorder and fucking record in the car
Oh,
on the way to
perfect.
Downey.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
And we can talk about where we're going and what we're doing and everything like that. Does that sound good?
Awesome.
All right, perfect. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for sticking with us as we took a hiatus, and pray for my cat.
Nietzsche will be fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye.